So we have a menagerie of dead Jedi in the basement. Is that what I'm saying? What is the point?
In Rebels, the Empire used corpses of Jedi to attract live ones. I think it was season 1. Ezra and Kanan were lured by a ghost and then realized that it was a ghost, but it was too late and the trap was sprung. That's a Filoni special.
So they break these things out of the amber and they trap Jedi?
The speculation that I've heard about the Jedi Vault in episode 4 has more to do with the cloning process.
So it's more of this Jugga Snoke stuff.
Based on what I've heard, I'm leaning in that direction. What's your theory?
Well, like so many things in this show, nothing was explained. But I don't know. We keep seeing stuff in like Mandalorian with cloning facilities, and there's always this reference to cloning. And to me, this feels like people working very, very hard to tie in or connect or try and validate, the Rise of Skywalker and the Return of Palpatine. And you're like, nothing is cool about Rise of Skywalker, so please don't try and reframe it. Thank you. But I thought this whole thing was just put there to once again show how Kenobi was a failure as a Jedi and how this is the results of your work. So we should probably take a moment where you can cry a little bit and forget to use the Force and look bad on the show. It's the secure area. Apparently, if you have a cylinder, you can just get in there. You just bing, door opens, no problem. I mean, it seemed to trigger upstairs at the security gate that she wasn't from around here, but using her code cylinder to get into the securest of the secure areas in the secure facility doesn't cause any problems. But is it a trophy room? If you notice in the briefing room, there's lightsabers under the windows. But then here's the other thing. All those people were in a surprisingly good condition for having been chopped with lightsabers. As we go through this and we look at these scenes and we try and make sense of them, it unravels quickly.
You're asking for an explanation in an episode that defies explanation. If I'm a casual fan, what was I supposed to take from the scene?
What kind of weirdos keep dead people in their basement? That's always the thing. That's always the concern that I have about prequels. Everybody knows the outcome because we have this other thing out there called A New Hope. So everything has to tie into that. But you start inserting these shows in these places. This is why we have so many plot holes and other problems and continuity issues and retconning and all this stuff, is because we know what comes after this. We fully have in our minds the expectation that whatever we're going to be watching is going to conform to what happens next. So it's very hard for me to get worried about Obi-Wan Kenobi in this show, because guess what? He shows up in a hut later talking about following him on some damn fool idealistic crusade. Like, dragging him through the fire and all that stuff, and it's like, well, that clearly isn't going to be a big deal because he grows old gracefully, kids. Out beyond the Dune Sea and all that stuff. So it's hard to create drama for a character.
Surprise! The writers subverted your expectations because they have no idea what's in canon. And so they're not following it. They're not adhering to it.
And the Grand Inquisitor and all the other crap that they pulled. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ben Kenobi we see in episode 4 is a clone.
Thank you. Cook up a little Kenobi in the basement.
That's right. Down there in the vault with all the other dead Jedi. These things that the Empire does and doesn't do that are just completely self-defeating. You've got this facility that has no shields. Well, why would you have a military installation that's the home of basically your dark forces, special forces group known as the Inquisitors, and have no security whatsoever, really, when you think about it, until you're inside the base, right? And finally, it's one guy at a terminal going, "Hey, you don't work here." She's like, "Don't you talk to me like that." But I was just trying to mansplain security to you. We were told when Disney bought Star Wars that they were going to do the Marvel situation. They were going to have a unified story group and that everything was going to tie into everything, constantly cross-referencing across product lines to make sure that we weren't creating these continuity issues and these canonical gaps or retcons. And it turns out that was just lip service, because what we're seeing is that on every single one of these shows, whether it be Bad Batch or Boba Fett or the Kenobi show, is that they don't do it with any sort of unified purpose or continuity factor. It's like people just keep bringing up cloning, and that's supposed to be enough for us. But I don't know. Are they trying to get to Thrawn? Well, what's the point of Thrawn? Is it going to be a retelling of the original Timothy Zahn books, not the new Timothy Zahn books? The original Thrawn, yeah, I could see the reason why we would be focusing on cloning, right? Because there was a portion of that story talking about having a new Sith Lord, but the cloning thing just keeps getting mentioned, but it's never really fully tied together. So it becomes muddy. But the whole thing is that it's because their story group doesn't talk to one another, really. They don't have, like, on a whiteboard in one office somewhere, the beginning of this story and the end of this story, and then how we're going to get there, right? They say that everything connects, but they start to contradict one another, and then you see stuff on the TV shows and the movies that totally blows stuff out of the water with the cartoons and the books and the comics and all that. Like, I don't buy this story group situation anymore. And I know that story group is mostly gone and those people have moved on to other activism, but it's a mess. It's a hot mess.
Welcome to Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. Joining me for a review of the Kenobi series, Grand Admiral Sean. Welcome, Sean.
Hello, my friend.
I'm going to continue with an unexpected question. Where's Hayden Christensen?
In a back-to-tank somewhere in Canada?
Okay.
Hayden Christensen has appeared in approximately 20 seconds of the show. Recently on the internet, we learned he has 3 stunt doubles that wear the Darth Vader outfit. So who's actually playing Darth Vader? I have no idea.
He was a big part of the hype for the show. He was on the interview circuit. He's not in the show.
And I had expected that when they were bringing him back, that part of this psychological abuse of the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi would come in the form of flashbacks to time he spent with Anakin and nightmares and force visions and things, with Hayden Christensen reprising his role as crispy Anakin or something along those lines. But instead, in the back to tank, and we see his face when they're putting the helmet on. But then, it's Darth Vader at that point. And as we know, Darth Vader can be played by any tall person who is muscular, because he's ultimately going to be voiced by an AI version of James Earl Jones. Of course, things may be changing in the next 2 episodes. We don't know. But here we are at episode 4. We are 2/3 of the way through the season, and we have had Vader on screen not a lot. And yeah, how much of this time has actually been played by Hayden Christensen? None, or very little. And yeah, I'm disappointed, because when they announced him and they said, hey, we're bringing him back and he's going to reprise his role as Anakin Skywalker and all stuff, I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And we have seen no Anakin Skywalker, period. Yeah, we're getting a lot of this in the modern Disney era of Star Wars. This bait and switch crap.
Another layer of the bait and switch, Leia, Reva. We're spending a lot of time with those 2 characters in a show titled Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's okay for Kenobi to share the screen. I'm not suggesting we should watch old Ben meditate in real time. But it's fair to say everyone's expectations rested with Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor.
Well, this is just bad writing for the whole show, but it includes the character of Leia, so I'll talk about it right now. The whole scene where she's being interrogated, the thing that leads up to her being interrogated, the whole premise behind that is that somehow 10-year-old girl from Alderaan is a key player in the resistance to the Empire, which is ultimately going to become the Rebel Alliance. She does become that later on as an adult, but in this moment when we meet her at the beginning of the series, she is basically your typical 10-year-old child of privilege who's being raised in a palace somewhere, right? Typical princess, right? She has all of her toys and all of her leisure time, and she's fighting against her parents and their, protocol and their formality, and she just wants to be a girl who runs around the woods. Okay, great. But at no time do we see her being brought in by her parents to meetings with the Fulcrum agents, or talking about the path, or how even that there is a problem in the galaxy with the Empire, right? Like, we don't really have that. So why suddenly does Reva believe that by torturing Princess Leia that she's going to somehow get the Underground Railroad for Jedi or whatever? She's happened to be just caught up in this because you kidnapped her.
Yeah, you have Kenobi coming for Leia not once but twice. I've watched some great reviews on YouTube about Bail Organa should be under arrest right now.
Totally.
I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi successfully rescued his daughter twice. I wonder if he's a part of the rebellion.
Just a misunderstanding. Yeah.
We'll really need to keep an eye on that guy in the coming years.
They've always suspected him. And so we kidnapped the daughter because we know that Kenobi will be drawn out. He has a relationship with Bail Organa. Well, if you can prove that by having Kenobi show up not once but twice, then yes, they should be over at his house right now, putting him in leg irons, perp walking him out of the castle or whatever. Yeah. But no, they don't. That's right. He's the one who should be down in the basement being burned.
Scream, doors closed.
Leave the girl out of it, man. Just go grab Bail, put him on the barbecue machine there. But no, they didn't. They didn't even rip off the best Star Wars movie for good plot stuff. But anyway,
right.
So, yeah.
And to be clear, we're not laughing at the thought of torturing people. We're laughing at what this is doing to canon.
Exactly. Yeah, it's gone to the point where we've tried to seriously treat this with respect. This is a Star Wars thing, and we're Star Wars people, and we want to give this a chance, but also, look at it with the critical eye of the Star Wars fan. And we've kind of gone through the 7 stages of grief on this. We're over the anger part. We laugh so we don't cry.
Episode 4 is when the show descended into farce. We could spend hours taking apart one scene for all of its errors. Are there any highlights or lowlights?
There are several.
Okay.
So the really poorly executed CGI on the speeders, they look like trash. We also got a convenient cutaway because as they flew into the hangar and shot all of the stormtroopers, they were moving at an extreme pace towards the wall. And then we get a cutaway, and then they're gone somehow, which is weird. So yeah, there's that. That was one scene. And then, of course, we had a gut-busting laugh session discussing the flying box that Reva throws at a snowspeeder that's going faster than the box, but somehow the box catches up. And
the accelerating box.
Yeah, the accelerating box.
The further it moves away from Reva, the faster
it gets. Yeah, right. Yeah. What else we got? We got the water in the hallway, which again CGI looked like trash, but the real my disbelief suspension is fully over moment is when Kenobi makes it through the doorway and there's no water that comes through that at all, and he is completely dry and there's no water anywhere to be seen, that he just somehow magically stayed ahead of that.
For a man who hasn't trained, very fast.
Well, we saw how fast he moved in episode 1. When we talk about the Imperial base and how there's a million people there, but nobody's doing anything except walking around in circles. The weirdness of the protocol of the place. It has no shields. It has no TIE fighters flying around, even though it has TIE fighters on site, which would have been super handy when it came to the speeders. The problem with how they've handled Vader in episode 3, showing up and doing a bunch of stuff to Kenobi, but then not finishing the job. The fact that he can use the Force to drag Kenobi through the fire, but he can't use the Force to drag Kenobi through the fire a second time. Someone who's had a bad experience in the past of other people having the high ground still can't seem to figure out where the shooting's coming from. So we've diminished Vader a lot. But we have fully established in canon that Vader, when you do screw up, he will kill you. We get to episode 4, and now we have the perceived failure on the part of Reva, and he's going to kill her, right? If he's to stay in character and to stay true to form. She had Kenobi. Kenobi is lost. Kenobi is everything. You have failed. You are dead. Instead, he stops choking her to let her explain herself, and then he gently sets her down on the ground and apologizes to her. So now, and in the moment, we've also basically made it to the point where Darth Vader's good ideas have all come from Reva. Let's put a tracker on the ship and let them go. Where'd you get that idea there, Steve Vader? Oh, I used to know this lady back in the day. She used to work for me. She was very good about these things. Right? So yeah, the assassination of Vader is complete in this show, and that to me is the greatest sin. It's a comedy of errors at this point. There is a video already up on the channel that shows many of the failures of editing, shall we say.
Again, nothing, just episode 4 just descended into comedy. Tala, she takes out the Imperial officer in the terminal room, and she takes out the 2 stormtroopers in the hallway. It's not worthy of Star Wars, because nothing of that poor quality beyond the holiday special, not since the Ewok films, has ever reached the screen.
No, I had mentioned, I believe off mic, these shows are starting to feel like Robot Chicken. Robot Chicken is intentionally comedic. I mean, it's written as comedy, but because you have a story that's being told that's not necessarily Star Wars, it's Star Wars adjacent, and it's being told with Star Wars action figures, right? So the show feels that way. We're not really getting real Star Wars storytelling, or we're getting Star Wars storytelling that completely flies in the face of all the Star Wars storytelling that's come before. And it's being done with people in Star Wars costumes, so it feels almost like high-level parody. This is something that's been going on for a while with all these movies and TV shows and whatnot, but this one, by the time we hit this episode, it feels like, are they trolling us? That's kind of like the question I have now. Is this show just a big troll of Star Wars fans? The flying box and the slapping of a stormtrooper and the jumping through the door without any water and
no, in all seriousness, just some channels known for Disney shilling. A few of those channels have turned, and the ones that haven't are hard pressed to defend the series, but now have been painted into this corner of, well, the last 2 episodes are going to be amazing. They're going to be fantastic. It'll all be worth it. This ever shrinking amount of ground that they can defend. There's nothing that can happen in the last 2 episodes that will smooth out all of the issues of the first 4.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.